Hey guys, it's Nathan from the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel. Welcome to the next Zoom interview in the Kentucky Cycling Connection series. I'm happy to introduce my guest today, who is the president of Kentucky Mountain Bike Association, or KyMBA Bluegrass Chapter, which is Jon Strom. Did I say your last name correctly?
You got it right. You're one of the
right.
few who tends to get it on the first try.
Well, Jon, welcome.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here, Nathan. Thanks so much for having me.
Before we dive into questions about KyMBA Bluegrass, why don't we start by having you tell us just a little bit about yourself, including how you got into cycling?
I'm kind of one of the rare birds, I think, around here. My wife, Katie, and I didn't pick up mountain biking until we were in our late 20s, almost 30. We went on a vacation to Pisgah area. We went and stayed in Nashville for a few days. And we were hiking and waterfalling and, drinking beer and doing all the things you do when you go visit Asheville if you're not a mountain biker. And we kept seeing all these cars with mountain bikes on them, and we'd go on a trail and they'd come screaming by us. And actually it was Katie who looked at me and said, I think I want to try that. And so we talked about renting a bike there. We went to one of the shops and talked to them about it, had shell shock on how much they wanted for renting a bicycle, and decided to wait. But the germ kind of started growing at that point. And we decided at that point, we got back into town and we elected it was time to maybe think about it. So we went and bought our first couple of mountain bikes over at Pedal the Planet when it was still open. And actually, Jack Baugh here in town was the guy who sold them to us. And I'm still good friends with him to this day. So he didn't scare me too bad. But we bought a couple of entry-level hardtails, jumped on, and never looked back. Quickly, those grew into multiple bikes, and riding locally turned into vacations and taking it everywhere. And I couldn't think of anything I would prefer to do more than ride my bike these days.
Well, that's a great story. I think particularly with COVID and the influx of new cyclists to the scene, some of the questions I'll have as we get into this are kind of directed towards some of them, and maybe you're more qualified to answer that since you sort of came to this a little later in life. Since you're the president of the KyMBA Bluegrass Chapter, I assume that your first love is mountain biking, but do you do other forms of cycling? And I'm happen to eyeball something with a drop bar on your on your wall back there.
We're starting to get more into some adventure riding. My first bike was a kind of an all-road bike to get around town with my wife, and then I got mountain bikes, and then we kind of stopped caring too much about the drop bar bikes. But as you know, living in Kentucky, there's usually a several-month window where it's really hard to get onto dirt because of rain and frozen trails and melting trails, and we just don't handle water very well here.
Yeah.
We had to kind of look elsewhere to get some things. So we recently kind of started buying a couple adventure style bikes, gravelly bikes, if you want to call them that, kind of with the idea of using it as an off-season trainer, taking it on road rides, taking it on gravel rides, but also gearing it up for maybe some light bike packing, or we like to fly fish. And we're kind of working on how to rig these up so maybe we can go attack some gravel and get further back than most fishermen usually get. So that's kind of one of our goals in 2021.
Cool. And I think there's a couple of really cool points in there. One is, and we'll talk about trail conditions a little bit, particularly, I think, to benefit those who are newer to it. And I think a lot of people, I like to think, who get out on trails when the trails are wet and sloppy are doing so out of ignorance
Right.
and not out of something more with more malice. So we'll talk about that from an education standpoint. But I also think your fly fishing point is interesting. I happen to have on, I don't know if you're familiar with a YouTube channel called Pathless Pedaled, and he's actually coined, I've got this t-shirt from them, it's coined like the party pace, but they actually are sort of gravel, and one of their passions is fly fishing. So you'll actually see content where they're combining the two. So something you might want to check out, which is kind of interesting combination.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very good. So he does a lot of, bike reviews and whatnot, but he's also, kind of bills himself as sort of promoting the non-competitive side of cycling and thereby coining phrases like party pace. So anyway,
I'm all about the non-competitive side of cycling.
Dude, I'm right there with you. The other phrase that he uses a lot is called supple life, which is, a nod to wider tires and whatnot, which is also good good stuff. So let me ask you, since your primary love is mountain biking, what is it that appeals to you more about mountain biking than other forms of cycling?
I think you probably get this answer a lot, but a lot of people who mountain bike really find solace in getting out in the woods and spending time in the trees and the rocks and the streams. And when I don't spend much time in the woods, I find that I'm a lot more stressed. I'm much more anxious. I'm just not myself. And getting on a mountain bike has proven to be a good way to stay fit, get out with some friends, and spend time in the woods. And I would say that's what drove me to it first. My wife and I were both swimmers all the way through college and needed a new outlet for working out, for competitiveness, for all that stuff. And we struggled through a lot of different things before we found mountain biking, and it fit for both of us, which is pretty rare. There's not a ton of married couples who ride together all the time, but we have a really good time doing that. It's been a good outlet for us. And on top of the getting out in the woods and just enjoying being out in nature, I have to also say it's the people. I think mountain biking lends itself more than a lot of other things to going out with friends, making friends, spending time together, and getting to know folks better than a lot of other sports and a lot of other activities. So the folks in the woods are really the reason I do it. So
turning our attention to KyMBA Bluegrass. So KyMBA is a regional chapter of the Kentucky Mountain Bike Association. Can you talk a little bit about KyMBA as an umbrella organization and what relationship these chapters have to each other, if any?
I know that KyMBA Bluegrass was founded in, I think, 2010. This was before I got involved. And it grew out of kind of a desire for the folks at that point to have a regional representation more so than a statewide. As you know, spending time in the state, it's very different from county to county, from area to area, from holler to holler, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think the people who around 2010 decided to break up KyMBA into chapters felt like it was better to regionally represent each other. And so for a long time, KyMBA Bluegrass was a very small but a very highly dedicated group of folks who did a lot of good work and really did it all themselves. So I think the relationship now is, I think that the boards are kind of starting to figure out that it's probably a good time for us all to work together a little bit more than we have in the past. And there's a group of us who talk on a semi-regular basis, and that's starting to grow. And there's a Facebook group for the chapters that talks pretty regularly, and we're finding ways that we can connect so that the sport of mountain biking in Kentucky as a whole can grow. When I look at the state of Kentucky, I see no reason we can't be an outdoor recreation destination on par with Western North Carolina, on par with North Georgia, some of those areas around here. We have incredible natural terrain. We have incredible green spaces. We just need to kind of work together to get them in the public eye and to develop them in a way that'll make them accessible and exciting for folks, and to get local landowners and local authorities to buy into that. And that's where we are now. And that's what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. And I'll say that's really kind of at the heart of what I'm trying to do with this Kentucky cycling project. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little plug in for a series that I've had really just done a handful of times called Trail Gnome Tours. And so I'm not a wheels off the ground kind of guy. I often like to say that I'm a lover of all forms of cycling, but master of none. So I'm just basically, the average Joe on two wheels. And I just love to be out there pedaling, and mountain biking I love it for all the reasons that you talked about. The goal of this channel really is to promote cycling resources throughout the state. By way of mountain biking, when I first started doing this channel, there wasn't a lot of YouTube content out there at all around cycling. I'm very happy to say that that is changing, particularly around the mountain bike scene. So we've got channels out there. There's a guy down in Southwest Kentucky calls himself Pedaling Dave. There's a guy in Somerset calls himself Dr. J MTB, and you probably know Erica Wireman, who's puts out some really cool content. And there's also Mark Bennett, who's more recent addition to that scene as well. So there definitely are more people sort of doing the wheels off the ground kind of stuff. That's not me, and so I'll say that what I like to do is a series called Trail Gnome Tours, which is really designed to highlight trail gnomes, basically the chief trail steward at a particular trail, to highlight their trail. And so basically I show up, maybe another rider or two, do a short interview about the trail, kind of an overview, and then we just go ride the trail, and I let the trail stewards stop and talk as much as they want about the trail. So I have done one of those for KyMBA Bluegrass in the form of with Troy Hearn with Capitol View Park. I'd really love to do more. It's a sort of a major goal of mine for 2021. So put that bug in people's ear for any of the trail stewards who might be listening to this. Please feel free to reach out. Let's get something scheduled, and I'm happy to come and highlight your local trail system. So go
we
ahead.
Would love to have you, our trail stewards this year, having, the COVID times going on right now. They've been busy, and they've got a lot of stuff done. So they've got a lot to be proud of this year. And I think they would love to show it off. So whatever we can do to help facilitate that, we'd love to.
All right. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to share my screen and bring up the KyMBA Bluegrass website, since I think it'll help frame our discussion, if that's okay. So I like right off the bat that you guys have, it's a very dynamic site, have this video here. Looks like maybe a women's clinic of some kind. Do you know what we're actually looking at?
I think this is the 2019 KyMBA Women's Clinic. It was out at Life Adventure Center. Yes, that would have been 2019. We had those clinics out at Capitol View Park for a long time. It was a great place to do it, but we had to share with everybody. Capitol View Park's a city park. They're not going to close it for a mountain bike clinic. Life Adventure Center is a private facility, and they rented us out their pavilions, their cabins for us to stay in overnight, because we would do basically 3 clinics over 2 days. We did a women's clinic on Saturday, and then on Sunday we did the men's clinic and the kids clinic. So we had something like 130 riders run through that weekend, and learn from coaches that are all over our region. And we had everything from, I've really only ridden a bike in my neighborhood, to I spend my weekends at Windrock Bike Park, and I want to get better at jumping over the nasty stuff over there. So we had a little bit of everything, and it was a really fun weekend. It was also about 105 degrees the entire weekend. I have a vivid memory of not being able to drink enough that weekend.
Well, is this something that you guys typically do every year?
We do. Obviously 2020 did not allow for us to do that. But we are hopeful that 2021, as things start opening up, we'll be back to our clinics. We have our social and events committee is working on trying to see if we can line up some coaches and start looking at maybe later in 2021 as to what might be a weekend that would allow it to be doable. So hopefully we'll have more details forthcoming. We don't want to put anybody in a situation where it's dangerous or unsafe. And so aside from riding your mountain bike, which obviously is a little dangerous and a little unsafe, but if there's going to be 100 people over there that weekend, we got to make sure we can do it safely.
Yeah, good deal. So I'm going to just kind of scroll through the homepage, because there's actually quite a bit of information right here. So we'll kind of move down before we move side to side. So right off the bat, there's a nice, who are we? So you want to talk a little bit about, kind of who Bluegrass Chapter of KyMBA is, and what you kind of things you do?
We've kind of distilled what we do down into 2 things lately. And I think this really speaks eloquently to what we want to do. And our 2 missions are to grow our sport and to grow our riders. And, that sounds a little repetitive, but it's really not. When I think about growing our sport, I think about finding ways to make inroads to folks who either are already mountain biking, or ways to expose folks who aren't mountain biking to the sport because we think they'd love it. And this can take a lot of different forms. As we talked about a little earlier, 2020 was a huge year for bicycle sales. You still can't buy a bike in most bike shops in town because they're all sold out. So there's a whole lot of new riders out there. And for riders kind of new to the sport, it often takes a little time for them to find a group of people to ride with and to learn how to ride as a good rider, and as a conscientious rider, and as a rider who knows the rules of the trail. And the only way to really do that is to ride with folks. I know when Katie and I first started riding, it was difficult to find folks. They were always out at the trail, but everybody was, doing their own thing, or you'd sit and you'd chat, but, or you'd try and meet somebody at a trailhead and you'd end up at different ends. And it's just kind of hard without some sort of mechanism. So one of the things we want to do is we want to grow the sport by making an inclusive atmosphere for folks. We want people who show up to our events to find somebody to talk to probably leave with somebody they can go ride with the following weekend. And I think we do a really good job of that. So growing our sport is the first part of that. The other side of that is finding ways to expand access, to put trails near people so that they don't necessarily have to go 2 hours. That's not feasible for some folks. And I think that's an important part of our mission. It's something we're doubling down on right now, is we're trying to find ways to put either trails in cities or to put skills centers, pump track available for folks so they can learn how to ride a bike. They can try and fall in love with what we do, just like we all did. So that's the growing the sport side of it. The other side is the growing the riders. And that involves two prongs to me. It's an educational aspect of it, helping you learn how to be a good rider, but also one that's conscientious and understands how to behave on the trail, and it's not just even right of way, oh, if you're going uphill, you have the right of way. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm almost talking about how to treat the other riders you meet on the trail, how to treat runners and dogs and hikers and families and horses and all the stuff you're going to run into on a Kentucky trail, how to handle that. So there's an education aspect of it. And on top of that, it's also finding opportunities to put more difficult terrain, more difficult features, more progressive opportunities for our riders so they can become more skilled, more confident, and really maximize their ability as a mountain biker. And that's not something that happens overnight. You have landowners who are liability conscious, and they want to be confident that they're not going to get in trouble because of what you do. That's the other part of what we do, is advocate both to expand our access and to make more challenging aspects to our trails. And we're working really hard to grow both those things right now. Grow our sport, grow our riders.
Great overview. I really appreciate that. I know you've got a lot more detail here on the Join Us page about the various membership levels. You wanted to kind of just talk through the different levels of membership, and then we'll get in a little deeper sort of about some of the membership benefits when we look at the Join Us page.
Sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and use this to plug an event we've got going right this second, since we're talking about membership. We're going through a membership drive right now. And we had a member who wished to remain anonymous. He reached out to me recently and he said, I'd like to donate $100. And I would like to donate that $100 to a winner to be drawn randomly for a gift card for the bike shop or outdoor store of their choice. But the only way they get to win is if you get 100 new members by the end of March. And so we heard that. We said, you know what, that's a really good opportunity. We actually found several other folks. We're up to 4 or 5 different gift cards now who wanted to sponsor this. So between now and the end of March, everybody who renews or joins their membership is entered to win a $100 gift card to the local bike shop or outdoor store of their choice. And those are independently funded. They're not coming out of our budget. Those are folks who just donated out of their goodwill. So we've got several options for you to join. You can join our normal $25 annual membership. It's now set up so it can be a recurring charge, so you never have to think about it again. And the other side is something we're kind of proud of. This is a new idea we put out this year. It's the $5 monthly trail booster donation. And so if you want to give a little bit more, or if you want to give a little more frequently, this is a $5 a month donation. It's taken out of off your credit card once a month. $5. It gives us $60 a year, and that all that goes back to maintaining our trails, putting gas in weed eater tanks, put signage up, helping run our events. So it's a way for you to give back to your community in a way that's it's a cup of coffee. It's a McDonald's lunch once a month. So we'd love to have you think about joining our monthly trail booster. And if you do that, you are entered to win that gift card. On the other side of that, we have our sponsorships, and there's 3 tiers there. There's our green sponsor, which is $1,000. Our blue sponsor, which is $2,500, and our black diamond sponsor, which is $5,000. And those are over a 3-year window. Obviously we'll accept more from whoever wants to give it to us, but those are our tiers of sponsorship. Right now we've got 3 black diamond sponsors. That's West 6 Brewing. West 6 is one of our absolute best partners. They let us use West 6 Farm. I'm sure we'll talk about that quite a bit more later on in our interview here today. But they do so much for our club. We can't thank them enough. Ale81 is another one of our Black Diamond sponsors, and the Baxley Family Foundation. So those are our Black Diamonds right now. We can't thank them enough for their investment in our community, and we look forward to giving back to them as much as we can.
Awesome. I mean, both on both sides. I mean, I definitely thank these corporate sponsors. That's really awesome. And then I think you guys are doing some innovative things. It's certainly going to prompt me to go out and renew my own annual membership to KyMBA Bluegrass specifically. And I want to encourage other folks who live in the greater Lexington area to either renew their membership or to join. And I like that you've added that automated feature for renewal, because I think a lot of us might forget, to renew. So this will keep that from happening, and hopefully people will come to, appreciate there's just a tremendous number of volunteer hours that go into maintaining these trails. And of course, ultimately there are resources, as you mentioned, like, equipment, gasoline, things like this that are actually needed to do this work. There are actually some professionals who could come in and do some machine built stuff, if there were resources to do that kind of stuff, and do even beyond, some of the hand built stuff. So there's a lot of great work that can happen, but that all requires resources. So we all need to kind of do our part. I look at it as, hey, I ride the trails. I mean, look at it as almost like a membership, to help support, that work. But then again, hats off to these corporate sponsors who really, up the ante and help take it a long way as well.
Questions a lot of folks have is, when is my membership up? And
yeah,
as we click around on this website a little bit more, I think you'll find we've added a new membership window to this. So essentially, you're going to get to set up an account on our website, and you can see when you paid your last donation, when you paid your last membership. That just went live this last couple of weeks as we rolled out the membership drive. So in addition to making it an automatically recurring thing, this will let you go, oh, when did I join last time? When was the last time I gave to KyMBA? You can look it up that way.
Good deal. And I know in the past there have been like stickers, or is there any kind of swag that people get?
There is, and you're going to get the sweet sticker. I'm going to plug her right now. This is my wife's design. She came up with both our website and our logo. We created a new board position, or new director position this year, which is our marketing director, and that's my wife, Katie Strom, who's done all of our work. And she's a graphic designer by trade. She's done all of our branding, and you're going to get a KyMBA Bluegrass sticker. You're going to get some access to some discounts at shops around town. Here soon, you're going to end up with a cool membership card, so you can be a part of the club. And then just that feeling of knowing you're giving back to what the trails that you ride all the time, and trying to expand that and trying to outreach in a better way. So we appreciate anybody who can join us. And selfishly, I'm also going to plug the fact that if you join us and we have a higher membership count, we're a lot more attractive for grants, for private donations, for things like that. So we can do those things like hire the big equipment. I'm going to plug it here and tease it just a little bit, but we do have some pretty exciting announcements to talk about towards the end of this.
Good deal. All good points. There's a whole section of the site dedicated to trails. And then here's some of the Black Diamond supporters. So I like that you've given these different trail levels the names of green, blue, and black, which, kind of correlate to different, levels of trail. Can you kind of explain, that for our newer riders?
Sure, absolutely. Our mountain bike trails are graded a lot like ski slopes. And if you've ever been to, Paoli or Perfect North or somewhere out west or something like that, that there are green trails, there are blue trails, there are black diamond trails, there are double black diamond trails, and then there's some other nomenclature that I've never actually been on a trail worth seeing like that before. So the green trails are your beginner trails. They're your entry levels. There's the way to learn. A lot of times your green trails are what gets you to your more difficult trails. Blue is a more intermediate. Blue is probably the widest spectrum I've found on trails. You can have some very beginner friendly blues, and you can have some pretty aggressive blues. So that's kind of your intermediate one, and a lot of people spend a lot of time there. At Black Diamond, you're starting to get quite a bit of more technical features, a little more high risk, a little more challenging places to go ride. And then double black diamonds are usually they're pretty intense. So that's why we tiered our sponsorship levels on that. It's our green, our blue, and our black diamond.
That's cool. And I know a lot of the different, maps even, combine the two. So there's, it's not like clearly green or clearly blue. It might be blue
Right.
green, or it might be, blue black, or, this kind of thing. I know a couple really good sources are Trail Forks seems to be the dominant one anymore. And then there's MTBproject.com. Is one source better than the other when it comes to KyMBA Bluegrass trails?
I really don't think so.
Okay.
I've used both on our trails before. We don't really have a relationship with either of them that I'm aware of. I think maybe some trail stewards use more on Trail Forks, some others use on MTB Project, but you should be able to find what you need on either.
Great. Trying to aim a lot of content here towards, newer riders who might be looking at this. So if you're looking for a trail with a particular level of difficulty, it's a great way to go about it is, not only look at what the trails are that are close to you, but also what the level of difficulty is with those trails. And you can kind of, find a great place to go ride in this area that's going to fit your particular skill set. So that's great.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go over to the join page and dig a little bit into. I think you've actually done a really nice job of kind of articulating this. But is there anything else that you'd like to add about why you should actually consider becoming a member of KyMBA?
There's a bit of a misconception that all we do is necessarily dig in the dirt, and that is our primary goal. Is we want trails available. We want the best trails we can provide. And we want the trails that do the most that we can for the members that we have. Like I said, we want to both grow our sport and we want to grow our riders. But there's a lot of volunteer work in the background, and there's a lot of costs in the background that are a part of what we do. And so much of it is, everything we do is volunteer based. So when we don't have a necessarily a funding source outside of donations and sponsorship. So every dollar you give goes right back into what we do. We don't have paid employees, or we reach agreements and relationships with the landowners so that we have access to go in and repair trails, to build trails, to access things. And we do that with the sweat of our volunteers, and we do that with the money that we are able to generate. And so every dollar you can provide us is another way we can get out there more. And, I also think that membership is important because it shows that, we're not just a handful of people riding around in flannel shirts and helmets, tearing up the dirt and causing problems, running over grandma while she's out for a hike. That's not what we do. We have, a diverse membership base. And I'd say that one of the things that appeals to me about cycling in general and mountain biking in particular is that it's not something for you to do while you're between the ages of 16 and 30. Mountain bikers come in all shapes, sizes, ages, colors. It's great. We went out recently for a ride with one of our friends whose 7-year-old daughter was there. And I cannot tell you how exciting that was to ride with her, because it was on one of the trails that we ride all the time. It's a backyard trail. You kind of get a little, I don't want to say bored with it, but it becomes a routine for you. So we went and rode with this 7-year-old girl, and it was so cool to just hear her just ramble the whole ride and talk about what she's seeing and what she's struggling with and what she's overcoming. And it was so cool to get to hear that and kind of develop a new level of stoke for the trail that you ride all the time. Yeah. And, you can have that from everywhere from a 5-year-old to a 7-year-old, all the way up to somebody in their 80s. I know people who are in their 80s who are riding mountain bikes. That's so cool. So the more active members that we have, and the bigger database that we have showing that we have members in large numbers and of all shapes, colors, and creeds, is going to help us be more influential, both to local cities, to landowners, to grant opportunities, to other sponsors, and will help us do more for our riders in the area.
Right. And I like that you make that a point that certainly trail work is, I'm sure, a big part, of what you guys do, but that's not the only way that people can contribute. So if they are looking for ways, to get involved, there's all these events, there's a lot of organization, things that happen, and all that takes volunteer work. I know I personally don't dig in the dirt, but the way I seek to contribute is by promoting these resources. So there's a lot of ways to kind of promote the work, and membership is sort of that baseline that's at the heart of this all. So it's great. Let's go on over here to your about page and tell me who are these sort of chief volunteers, if you will, that are doing this out there doing this work. Oh, there's a familiar face.
Hey, I know that guy. No, I think we have a board of directors that I can't speak highly enough about. They are so dedicated and spend so much time in the background doing everything from, like you said, putting their back behind a shovel and creating something new, to sending out the new member letters, to working with the landowners to try and advocate for something else, to setting up our events. We're blessed with 3 different committees that we work on, and I'll use this as an opportunity to ask anybody if they want to become a part of what we do in a little bit higher degree. Feel free to reach out to me about one of these committees. And the 3 committees are our Grants, Fundraising, and Advocacy Committee. This is made up of myself, Daniil Hill, and Jeb Gorham. Jeb's our chair there. He's a professor at Midway College who does a lot in grant writing. And we're the ones who do a lot of searching to find money. We do the fundraising side of things. We do the grant writing side of things. We're the arm that works with the local governments and the landowners to get access. So if you're a writer, if you're a talker, if you're somebody who's good at maintaining connections or digging and researching, come think about joining our Grants and Fundraising Committee. We have a Trails and Standards Committee, obviously. That's run by Troy Hearn, and they are the ones who organize our trail stewards. Each one of our trails has to have a dedicated trail steward, and that's the person that's involved with directing the maintenance of it, scheduling trail days, making sure that everything is built in the proper way. The standard side of that is there as well, and that's they're in the middle of trying to create a set of standards for Kentucky mountain biking, and that's a neat project that's forthcoming right now. I'd have to give a shout out to the trail stewards that are listed there. They do incredible work, and they are out far more than you will ever realize. So if you see these folks on a trail, shake their hands, give them a beverage at the trailhead, do what you can to thank them, and even better, show up at a trail day and help dig a little bit. So that's our Trails Committee. And then we have our Social Events and Membership Committee, and that's the people who schedule our fun stuff. They work hard to both develop our membership. They're the ones running our membership drive right now. They schedule events like our Franks and Berms rides, our 12-hour Capitol View race, our men's, women's clinics, and our year-end kickoff, stuff like that. So ways to get out to our members and get out in front of them. So if you're good at party planning, if you're good at running down donations for raffles, if you're good at taking a credit card at a table and chatting somebody up and making them feel welcome, please think about getting involved with our events committee as well.
Cool. And do you guys anticipate that the 12-hour of Capitol View Park is going to happen this year?
Kind of like the clinics, where we would like to see it happen. We will just kind of have to see if we can work it out.
Okay. So no date or anything yet, but sort of on the radar, so to speak.
It is. I think, again, we would love to have it. And we value it as a center part of kind of our year. I'm not a racer, but a good chunk of our members are racers, and they really enjoy it. And it's a great opportunity to get everybody together and hang out. So, but again, it's that get everybody together and hang out aspect of it we got to pay attention to right now.
Yep. Good deal. And I'm just going to note, since I've scrolled down this far, what are some other channels that people can look to connect with you guys aside from the website here?
We have a very active Instagram page. I think that would be one of our primary places to go check people out at. And as you can see, it's KyMBA_Bluegrass, and we'll let you know of events like raffles and membership drives, trail days, and you can see some updates on some trail updates as far as their status, and some cool photos of folks out doing trail work, and that's some of the clinics. And so that's a good way to know exactly what's going on in our community, and that will obviously be more and more active as the more events we can have. So we use our Instagram quite a bit, and then our Facebook page is KyMBA Bluegrass. It is largely become kind of a landing site for a lot of the state to kind of chat about mountain biking, and you know what? That's great. We love it that folks can come there and talk about not just KyMBA Bluegrass trails, but wherever they're riding, whatever they're doing, and whatever they can do to promote riding here in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
So we really enjoy having that as kind of a focal point for the state there. And also on Facebook, each one of our trails has a
Yeah.
page, and that will help you understand where what trail conditions are at that trail for whatever particular day you're looking to go. And those
Yeah.
are updated by the trail stewards or a handful of folks who are out there on the trail stewards' behalf.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I know you've got a trail conditions page here on the site. Do those generally get updated together, or if people are kind of looking for the most up to date? Are they better off to look at the Facebook page, or can they look either places?
I think either place, the trail conditions, the way that works, just kind of from a technical standpoint, is somebody updates the background photo on the Facebook page of the trail, and
Mhm.
that links over to the trail condition on the website, and that lets people know what it is.
Good deal.
So that's how that works. There's not necessarily a set day for updating that, but as people find information, they're pretty quick. The trail stewards go to a lot of work. They don't want their trails damaged because they could be ridden. So
Yeah.
if they're concerned about it, they're going to put that up. I'll put a plug in for this as well. Our secretary, Eric Paul, just started, and you can find some information about this on our KyMBA Facebook page, a trail conditions email. And he has built a program that will analyze the reported rainfall, how much moisture has hit some area, and will let you know every morning at 5:30 in the morning how much water it's gotten over the last, I think it's 72 hours. So that is learning as it's going, and eventually, hopefully, it'll be able to tell people we can use that information to help develop a little bit better trail conditions updates.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So if you check the Facebook page, you can subscribe to that.
Okay, cool. Very good. So since we're talking about trail conditions, can you go ahead and kind of just talk us through the colors and the different conditions? And I think, particularly, I know a lot of veteran riders are familiar with this already, but since we have all these new folks, I definitely want to put this information out there and for people to become familiar with it.
No, I'm really happy you're doing that, especially these trail conditions. It's something that varies greatly from location to location. I think when folks move to the Bluegrass region, they have an expectation of wherever they rode before. That doesn't always necessarily apply to where you're riding today. So in ours, we have 4 colors. There's green, which is open, go out there, the dirt's good, we'd love to have you. There's yellow, which is you can probably still go ride, but we'd ask that you pay attention to it. Make sure you're not leaving big ruts, you're not taking or mud to your tires and leaving a bunch of new damage on the trails. There's closed, don't ride it. That's red, and closed is pretty self-explanatory, but the causes can be different. It can be closed for maintenance. It can be closed for too much water. It's too muddy. It can be closed for hunting season. That's another one. You don't want to get mistaken for a deer running through the woods. So we ask that, be careful when you see the red up and don't go out and ride that day. And then freeze thaw, which is the blue color, is something it took me a while to wrap my head around, but I think I finally got it. So people can comment if I don't quite understand it right, but essentially what that means is you need to get out before the ground thaws. Usually this occurs during the coldest of the cold winter months, and the ground will completely freeze by pulling all the moisture into the ground. And that's okay. But once that moisture starts to melt, it then turns back into mud as it bubbles to the top. So usually you got to go out before 10 a.m. And go for a ride and make sure that the sun isn't starting to melt that water that's in the trails and create mud bogs.
Yeah. So I'm glad you point that out, that after that thaw starts to happen, you're talking about some really deep ruts that can happen, in terms of a trail if people are out there. And, right now this is being filmed in February. So the ground is really nice, and solid, pretty much throughout the day. But just as an example, we're getting ready to have some 50-degree weather, and people who aren't clued in, they're going to think, I haven't been able to get outside and ride. Here's my window to go ride. And that's, most of these trails are going to be in that freeze thaw, state where they've been frozen, they're starting to thaw, they're really, really wet, and a lot of damage, can occur. So,
Absolutely.
please do pay attention to these trail conditions, because it impacts all of us.
Absolutely. And the other thing to note is as you're riding, you may go out before 10 a.m. It might be absolutely frozen, and it might stay below 32. But, personally, I went out for a ride the other day on a freeze thaw morning, and the sun started creeping up over the trees. And before we knew it, we had to bail, and we had to bail fast because it got muddy, and it got muddy very, very quickly. So, that's kind of the other side. And when we talk about trail damage, it's not necessarily that there's just a new rut. Everybody thinks, mountain biking, we like riding over rough terrain, and we do. Don't get us wrong, we do. But the ruts aren't necessarily a problem because they're a rut. It's because they'll hold water and end up with drainage issues, and they will always stay muddy. And then we'll have drainage issues, and we'll have erosion problems, and all of a sudden we're creating a bigger issue. So that's why we ask you to abide by those rules.
That's great. That's great. All right. So I want to get into the heart of this, which is the trails. And because we have talked about that, influx of new riders to the scene this year, I wonder, rather than approaching this alphabetically, if you would mind to kind of start with the trail that you think is the most beginner friendly, and then move up to the trail that you think is the most technical.
I kind of view our trails in like you said, like a spectrum for me. And when a new rider gets on a bike, this is kind of the order I tend to point them to go try things out. And I can say, from personal experience, my very first ride was at Veterans Park here in Lexington. First time I went on a bike, went out by myself, crashed pretty badly, had a good time. But, and I scared myself pretty good. And then I talked to somebody, and he sent me over to Skullbuster. And that was pretty much over my head that day.
Yeah.
But, so I think it's good to think of these as a bit of a spectrum. And I'm going to start with a trail that's not listed on here currently, but is just about to be officially open. And that's at Deer Haven Park here in Lexington. It's a short trail loop. It's going to be about 2.5 miles. It's been built by Gene Fowler and Stephanie Allen, who are trail stewards out there. It is off of the Brighton Trail, which is a rail to trail coming out of Lexington. And you can hop on there on a mountain bike with your kids. You can hop on there with a gravel bike. I rode it the first time on the bike behind me there. It's nice and twisty. There's some really dense trees and some really dense foliage out there. There's some neat features they've incorporated out there, but it's rolling, and it's mostly flat, and it's pretty low consequence. And it's a really good opportunity to go learn to ride a bike, or to go take a deviation on your road ride, because if the trail conditions permit it. So that would probably be the one that I think a lot of people could start at. And on top of that is obviously Veterans Park. And Veterans is located in kind of south side of Lexington. It's kind of the trail most people think of, that one or Capitol View Park, when they think of KyMBA Bluegrass. And it's a municipal trail. Our trail stewards there are Dylan Tucker, Jack Eichelman, and John Deller. And they have done really well at maximizing what they can do out there. And like a lot of places, what we're allowed to build out there is controlled largely by our landowners. So this is a beginner-friendly trail with some little optional B or A-line features kind of off to the side. So you can go out, you can have a good time. It's the focal point for a lot of our things like Franks and Berms, or our NICA Kids League rides out here a lot. And it's a great place to take your friend for that first ride.
Yeah. So that's great. So two really nice sort of beginner, or with case of veterans, maybe beginner with some intermediate thrown in trails to kind of get you started right there in Lexington. So that's great. What would you say is sort of the next, are we now heading into intermediate?
I'd say we're heading into intermediate, and I think we're going to head to the trail that probably gives you the widest range of rideable stuff at any skill level, and that'd be Capitol View Park.
Yeah.
That's in Frankfort. It's got about 13 miles worth of trail. That's where we've held our 12 hours of Capitol View race every year for quite a while, since well before I was involved in mountain biking. I think it does a really good job of offering just kind of flat rolling trails to steep rocky stuff. I think everybody who's ridden a mountain bike in Kentucky has probably played on the sinkholes over there. I actually have a funny story about sinkholes. I'm gonna not really rag on a different region, but there was a trail my wife and I went and rode in a different state. I'm going to be very vague. And they had what they listed as a double black diamond feature at their trail, and they called it the Death Drop. And we get to the top of and we get to the top of it. We were traveling, so we didn't really plan on riding it, but we wanted to go see what the Death Drop looks like. And we get to the top and we look down and we're like, this is a sinkhole. And we got to the top and we rode it. And if you've ridden in Kentucky, it is a no-brainer because it is a sinkhole ride, and it was a really good time. I don't want to say that these are advanced features and that these are black diamond features you shouldn't play on. They're just really fun features. Right. And the sinkholes in Frankfort at Capitol View Park are one of the gems of our area. For sure. And I think it's a good way to get some hoots and some hollers out of folks.
And I think you're making a good point. You're kind of hedging around a good point, which is these ratings are all relative, right?
Absolutely.
So a local trail steward is basically doing their best to give you a sense, and they're probably making these ratings relative to other trails in their region. And so,
yes,
what is a beginner trail here, might look different than, a beginner trail, say in Indiana versus a beginner trail in Western North Carolina versus a beginner trail in Colorado. These are, so it's all kind of relative to the other trails that are around here. So
I think that's really important to stress is that, I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel a little bit. And when I first started riding and traveling, I said, well, I can ride all the blue trails. And then I went out to British Columbia once. And that's a different kind of blue trail. And, it kind of helped me reset myself as to, when I look at a trail rating, you need to kind of think about, maybe at least the first day you're out somewhere, back it off a level than what you usually go seek out. Make sure you're comfortable with what you're riding out there.
Yeah. And I'll say, just as I feel very blessed. I live about 2 miles from Capitol View Park, so I'm very fortunate to call this my home trail. And it's really, really nice to have a resource like this so close. And this is also the site of that event that we talked about earlier, the 12 hours of Capitol View Park. So really, really fun event. And the thing I love about that particular race, and I'm not a racer. I mean, I'm definitely, fan of the party pace. But there's such a wide gamut of, what is out there, because you can be, it's basically the concept is you can ride as far as you can in a 12-hour period. And you can do that as an individual. You can do that as, a duo or triple, or even up to a 4-person team. And there's, the classes are 1, 2, and 3. So I'll just say when I've done this, I've been category 3, 4-person relay, and we're just out there having a good time turning pedals. So
absolutely. Same for me.
But there are definitely people who are passing you who are, going to put in 100+ miles that day. So, and
we had
all that can take place
1 year.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. That's, I mean, it's insane to me. I'm going out there and I'm riding maybe 22, 24, whatever it is, and or might get in a third lap if I'm feeling super great that day. But yeah, I mean, there's all the whole spectrum, and everybody's out there having a good time and having burgers and the like. So it's a really inclusive race.
As we scroll on the page here, Nathan, I think one of the things that we've added recently, I think is kind of a handy tool for new riders, is that trail precautions section you're pointing at. When you go for a bike ride, if you're a new rider, you don't necessarily just need your bike and your water bottle. It's kind of important on some of these trails to have a little more. And that might be an inner tube if you're running tubeless tires, or if you're running tube tires. Kentucky is known for thorny plants. Kentucky is known for roots and rocks. And those are very hard on tires, all of them. And having that spare inner tube with either a pump or a CO2 cartridge, and having the ability to change a tire is an important skill, so you don't get stuck, several miles from your car out in the back. Capitol View Park and veterans, you're never that far away from your vehicle, but there's some other ones that you can be a pretty decent ways away and in some pretty rough terrain. So think about what you bring with you, and think about what you might run into. Trail at Capitol View, it mentions in there that there is a large deer population, and there's certain parts of the trail where you'll come around a corner and all of a sudden all the ground will jump up and run away with you because you didn't see the deer there and they took off running. And it's really fun, but they're big animals. So just kind of pay attention and respect the animals and respect where you ride.
All right. So we're kind of working our way up. We've talked about Deer Haven. We've talked about Veterans and Capitol View. What would you say is the next hardest trail on the list?
I'd say the next three, I'd probably put them all in the same category. I'm going to go in order of talking about Knucklehead next.
Okay.
And I'm mostly because it is shorter than Skullbuster. And that's kind of where I'd go. And I'm going to end at West 6th, and I'll explain why when I get there.
Okay.
Knucklehead Life Adventure Center, I think, is one of the more backwoods, backcountry kind of rides we have in our envelope. It's pretty rough. It's pretty tight. There's about 7 miles of trail out there. Our trail stewards are Roger Wilson and James Brown. They do a great job of maintaining a natural feel out there. It's not a trail where there's a lot of, flowy dirt berms and tabletop jumps and things like that. You're out there because you want to go ride in the backcountry. It's about 7 miles long. It's at the Life Adventure Center, which is a facility that does a lot for trauma victims. And they've let us build some trails on one side of it, and they've actually used those in some of their therapies. It's a really neat place. This is one of my favorite places to go because you do get to go out in the middle of nowhere and feel like you're kind of out by yourself. You'll ride over big rock features like a bit of a canyon carved by the creek there. You'll go. They've incorporated some 100-year-old stone fences into the trail that you kind of have to get over the top of a damaged portion. It's rooty, it's rocky, it's steep and technical in some areas, but I think you'll have a really good fun time out there. Big intersections as well, just like all of our trails. In fact, this is where we hosted our clinics last time we had them in 2019, and that was because of the wide variety of terrain we can put somebody on out there.
All right. So you just want to work your way down?
Sure. Let's go down from there. Let's go to Skullbuster next. Skullbuster is located a little bit north of Georgetown.
Do you have any idea how Skullbuster got its name?
I believe, and don't quote me on this, but my understanding is there used to be a small community there named Skullbuster.
Interesting.
That was where they picked up its trail. And, when you tell your mom that you're going to go ride at Skullbuster, you usually but this is a fairly a lengthy trail system. I think it's somewhere around that 12 miles, and they're building all the time out there. It's tight. It's more of an intermediate advanced trail. It's lots of roots and rocks.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 ways to get in. You'll start at a parking lot at what I'm going to call the bottom, or you can start at a parking lot near the top. And the top is over by the horse people's parking lot, because this is a multi-use area. You can run into horses out here, which I think is important to note. And I'm going to take an opportunity to say, if you do run into horses, stop, get off your bike, and ask the rider how they'd like you to proceed, because horses are big, dangerous animals and they can be spooked, and you can get hurt or the rider can get hurt. It's a unique aspect to Kentucky that we might run into horses on our trails, I think. Skullbuster really has that backcountry feel as well. And, I would like to point out that this is the trail that you do need to make sure you bring your extra gear on this trail. You need to have a tube. You need to have some tools. I don't want to scare anybody from going, but there's a few places you're several miles away from an exit, and you don't necessarily want to have to hike that. But it's a lot of fun. They've built some new flowier sections out there. They've just opened a new trail called Whitesnake. I haven't had a chance to go down it yet. Kevin Friddle and Mike Mitchum, our trail stewards out there, whenever they say that name, they get this big grin on their face. They are really proud of this, and they look really excited to go out and show it to folks. So that's a lot of fun. I would encourage you to go spend a day out at Skullbuster, because it's one of the jewels we've got as well.
And last but not least,
certainly not least, this is West 6th Farm. This is our newest addition outside of Deer Haven, which isn't officially open yet. It's located in Frankfort off Rick Ferry Road. I think I said that right.
Yes, that's right.
It's about 5 or 6 miles right now, I believe. I may be a little over on that. It's built and maintained. It was initially built by Jason Monk, who was a longtime steward and coach and stoke builder in our community, and he moved away, and Ross Klein has taken over. Ross has done an incredible job of helping build this into a very rideable, very fun section of trail. And it's pretty tough. It's pretty challenging. There's not much in the way of a true green trail out there right now. We're working towards that. We don't have a whole lot of that out there right now. It's kind of a big loop. It starts down at Jawbone at the bottom there, which is close to the tap room, which is open on the weekends. You can go for a ride and finish with a cold beer at West 6 Farm. You can go for a ride while your family hangs out there. It's a really great meeting place. And you'll start with Jawbone, which is kind of the entry trail. You'll also have a jump line that's built, and I'll talk about that again here in a second. And you'll climb up the country road, wind your way up to the top, and go for a big loop on Hobo Holler, Crimson Corner, and Crazy Creek if you're feeling up to it, and then back down Big Burr. It is a trail that does well wet. You can ride this most of the time, and Ross is okay with that. So I'd encourage you, if it is wet and you're just dying to get out, check on the status at West 6 Farm and see how it's doing. We have a lot of big plans for out at West 6. We're working on some new grant opportunities to extend our trails out there, to kind of refine the trails we've got and add more. And we actually have a new project that'll be starting here in the next week or two, which was funded by a raffle we did at the end of 2020. That was a Marzocchi bomber fork and a Rover cooler, which were donated. We raffled them off. We raised about $2,500, and we are going to be building a what we call a flight deck, which is you kind of roll up to the top of it, and it's going to be almost like a wooden structure with a ramp on one side, and you roll down that to approach the jumps to get the right amount of speed. There's going to be a double jump line there, one with some gaps and one with some tabletops. And we've got some machinery coming out to help us build that and build it really well. So the funding there is going into that jump line, and we hope to have that open sometime this spring.
Cool. All right. So I have stopped sharing the webpage there, but I know you've got some new developments and sort of some exciting things that are happening on the horizon. So I wanted to ask you about some of those.
As you know, we had this scheduled a couple weeks ago for us to chat, and I said I've got two or three things that are percolating right now, and I'd really like an opportunity to see if they bubble to the surface. And I'm proud to say that they all did. So we've got several new exciting developments. I'm going to start by saying this is something that's been in the works for a while, but we have a new trail system currently being constructed in Lexington in the Cardinal Valley neighborhood. And it's going to be called Preston Springs. It's in a small, kind of a pocket park. It's not very big, but it's really, really pretty. It's built around a natural spring bubbling up. It's very dense with local foliage. They work a lot with the Friends of Wolf Run. They're working on a honeysuckle remediation program out there, so it's all Kentucky native plants and things like that. And they've asked us to come in and build a short trail system. And what we really appreciate about this is right in the middle of the Cardinal Valley neighborhood. And this is an opportunity to help people who don't have the means necessarily to go out to a mountain bike trail 45 minutes from their house, an hour from their house, maybe not even across town. But this will let it be in somebody's backyard. And as we talked about it, you and I both believe that there is something special about being in the woods. And I think it kind of helps people prioritize their life and, maybe find some calm. And it's an experience that we're pretty blessed to have, but not everybody gets that opportunity. This is an incredible spot that I think is really, really pretty. It's got some really fun terrain. It's interesting. It's going to be a pretty short trail, probably a couple miles, kind of similar to Deer Haven. But I really think it's going to be a neat opportunity for people to go out and ride a bike, go for a hike, go for a walk, bring something to eat and enjoy the woods. That's right in the backyard of a neighborhood that really deserves an opportunity like this. So I'm very excited about Preston Springs. As this winter comes to an end and as we get into spring, we're going to be working really hard out there to try and get those trails built so people can start enjoying them, especially because we really like to have this available when people still can't congregate. So please keep your eyes open for an opportunity to go work on a really deserving trail system at Preston Springs. Cole Gruber is our trail steward out there, and we'll be pushing for some trail days out there soon. So that's one of the coolest projects I'm working on right now, and I'm very excited about it. I think everybody else is as well. So keep your eyes open for Preston Springs. The other very exciting piece of news I've got is that a local community in our region has just elected to invest heavily in mountain bike trails. And that is Berea, Kentucky, just south of us. and actually Madison County as a whole. And if you live in Madison County, I think you're going to be very excited as this year comes around. Berea on their city council, thanks in no small part to their GIS department and to Councilman Steve Cottle and Council person Katie Startzman, has been pushing for putting mountain bike trails on a piece of industrial land that is pretty challenged to try and develop. And so it's a rather large piece of property. They've authorized us to enter a 45-acre tract, and they are investing $101,000 into a bid that was presented by Andrew Parsons and Parsons Construction. He's a local guy out of South Central Kentucky. He's going to come up, and
he's the assistant coach at Lindsey Wilson, right?
He is, yes. He's a Lindsey Wilson college coach. He helped build a lot of their features. If you have ridden at Pulaski County, he built a roller trail. He was just down there with the recent renovations helping. So he's a skilled trail builder, and we're excited to have him on board. He's going to build 4 trails, a pump track, a parking area, and some access features as well to get there as a phase 1. So they are prepared to spend tourism money, to spend some good money on this. And this will be starting very, very soon. We're very excited to see Berea take this big step and truly become a trail town. That's a program that's here in Kentucky, if you're watching from out of state, where they encourage towns to embrace outdoor culture. And if you read it right now, trail towns talk about hiking, they talk about spending time in the woods, and they talk about paddling. They glaringly omit biking. And we're working on trying to get that changed. And I'm glad that Berea realized it was a glaring omission. So we're very excited. We are very appreciative of the Berea City Council and their tourism cabinet for electing to donate to this. If you want to be involved, we will need volunteers. We will need a trail steward, and we're going to need a lot of help. So please stay tuned for that. Our hope is that that will begin construction sometime this spring and maybe be open sometime this summer.
Yeah. So I want to give a shout out also to Berea. So Berea, I know a lot of Lexington folks are familiar with the Legacy Trail. Berea is really hard at it with a lot of paved multi-use trails that I would say come close to rivaling the Legacy Trail. So I'll include a link to that. I mean, you can go down and start out like from the Artisan Center, make your way out to the Pinnacles, and you could even park your bike and go hike the mountains if you wanted to. But there's quite a bit of the multi-use trails there. And I'll say that Katie Startzman, I went to Berea College, buddies with her husband, Michael, and they So they own together a restaurant in town called Native Bagel. Really cool place to grab some food when you're there in Berea. And Katie, their son, actually took an interest in mountain biking, and so they started reaching out to me for ideas about where to go to ride, trying to grow that love in their son. And so I know they're super excited and really appreciate her work. I'm really looking forward to being able to do some mountain bike riding there in Berea. So that's an exciting development.
Well, and like you said, the Startsmans have been great. Steve Cottle has really been the champion for this project, pushing it through. This is an opportunity to kind of just briefly talk about, how a trail comes to fruition. It's not just as simple as I go talk to a park and I say, I want to put a trail, and they say, sure. And we go do that the next month. This has been going on as long as I have been a board member for KyMBA. So it's at least 3 years now. It starts as an idea, and then it turns into, seeking permission, and then it turns into a feasibility idea. And then you start looking for funding to make it happen. And then you start looking for volunteers to make it happen with or without the funding. And then you usually have to reach some sort of agreement with the landowner, with the city, with the state, whoever it is. So I think, and I was listening to your interview with Liv Birkenhauer a few weeks ago, and she hinted at that too, that trails don't happen overnight. And it's the result of a lot of efforts over a long period of time. So if you ever have an opportunity that you think of somewhere that would be a good spot for a trail, or you have an in with a local city or a local landowner that is showing an interest in there, please don't be shy about reaching out to us. It won't happen without, somebody making an introduction or finding the right way in. And even then it's going to take a while. So if you have a way for us to know about that, we'd love to hear about it. Yeah. So I thought I'd take that opportunity just to speak about this, but this has been a project I think it came to our minds in late 2018, early 2019, something along those lines. And we're just now to that point, and we're very excited for those bids to be accepted. And we think it'll be a really cool opportunity for Berea and for Madison County and for Central Kentucky as a whole. But as we're talking about Madison County, there is one other project that's not getting quite as much fanfare, but we probably need more help on. And there is a property over there called Maywoods. Basically, it's a large nature preserve that's run by Eastern Kentucky University. And they have recently authorized the beginnings of construction of some mountain bike and multi-use trails out there as well. And cool. Right now they are cutting. It is going to be largely a fairly friendly beginner-ish loop to start with the option of growth from there. And I believe there is the capability of something north of 20 miles out there eventually. So This is a pretty fun project as well. It's very, very much in its infancy. But we are going to be needing some volunteer labor out there to get this off the ground so we can get phase one built and we can start looking beyond that. So if you live in Madison County, if you live in the counties that touch Madison County, you're going to have an opportunity to help us. And we would really love to have you get involved. And I hope you will, because it's a lot of fun. It's a great group of people to work with, and it's super rewarding to go ride something that you helped craft. And I hope you'll realize that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really exciting. A lot of cool things on the horizon. That's really cool.
I'm very, very excited about 2021 for KyMBA. It's been, like I said, 2020 was, we felt like we were poised for something exciting, and 2021 feels like it's all coming to fruition just a year later. So we hope that you'll, like we said, we have a membership drive going right now. The more membership dollars we have, and membership numbers, the higher the membership number we have, the better we can do to continue to provide opportunities for bigger, better, and more expansive trails, as well as opportunities to put them in spots where people don't have a chance to ride or to go outside. So please feel free to join that. Tell your friends who aren't mountain bikers, but hikers, trail runners, the people who run with their dog sled dogs, anybody who uses our trails. They're all maintained by volunteers. They're not necessarily maintained by the city or the landowner. And we'd love to have you go ahead and become a member with us. Send us your $25, send us your $5 a month, but help us keep these going and help raise our membership numbers. So come join our family, come be a part of what we do. I guarantee you'll have a good time.
Awesome. Well, Jon, I want to thank you again for being a guest in the Kentucky Cycling Connection series and for talking to us about the work of KyMBA Bluegrass.
Nathan, I really appreciate you having me. And I really appreciate what you do for cycling in the state of Kentucky. As I said earlier, there is nothing that should stop Kentucky from being a destination for outdoor recreation generally and for cycling specifically. And I think you're playing an important role with that. So thank you for what you do.
As always, we hope you found this content useful. If you did, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks.